When the Primarchs were scattered across the galaxy from the Emperor's gene laboratory beneath the Himalaysian mountains on Terra by the Chaos gods, Perturabo landed on a civilized world named Olympia. His early life, shrouded in mystery, is pieced together from accounts given to Imperial iterators, although these accounts are often questioned due to Olympia's complex political intrigues. Perturabo's gestation capsule, stolen from the Emperor's side by the entities of the Warp, hurtled like a blazing comet through the galaxy and crashed onto Olympia. Bursting from his capsule and standing on his own legs for the first time, Perturabo found himself on a snow-topped mountain, his presence marked only by a cryptic letter inscribed on his capsule. Unlike his brothers, who landed in confusion and panic, Perturabo possessed a sense of his identity, even a name etched into his soul: Perturabo. Olympia was a rugged world of mountainous terrain, its history steeped in the dark age of technology. It was a place of rich stonework art and advanced technology, now marred by the conflicts of the Age of Strife. Each city-state on Olympia had evolved its own culture and traditions, leading to a web of subterfuge, manipulation, and war. Ruled by warring tyrants, Olympia was a society where greed, security, and dominance were paramount. In his solitude, Perturabo roamed the remote mountains of Olympia, surviving thanks to his inherent Primarch intellect and genetics. His first interaction with humans occurred when he came upon local shepherds. Initially, Perturabo observed their illogical actions from a distance, but an innate desire to protect them ignited within him. Crafting a weapon from local resources, Perturabo killed a monstrous beast threatening the shepherds, marking the beginning of his legend on Olympia. Though Perturabo was a Primarch with fragments of memory and purpose, his life on Olympia would profoundly shape him. The culture, people, and geography would seep into his being, molding a Primarch who, while uniquely aware of his origins, was still deeply influenced by the world that raised him. Perturabo was found wandering in the wilderness outside the city-states of Olympia, exhibiting combat prowess and extraordinary artisan skills despite his youth. His talents caught the attention of Dammekos, the Tyrant of Lokos, a cunning ruler, intrigued by rumors of this remarkable boy. Eventually, Perturabo was discovered by Dammekos's guards and brought before the Tyrant, who was impressed by the boy's ability to defeat experienced warriors and solve complex puzzles presented by his scholars. Dammekos offered Perturabo a place in his court, a proposal that was accepted under the terms of fealty and service from Perturabo in exchange for patronage, protection, and access to military training and scholarship. However, accounts vary about Perturabo's time in Dammekos's court. Some depict him as a prodigious talent, engrossed in solitary training and study, while others suggest a colder, more calculating character, never fully integrating with the Olympians or reciprocating the affection of his adopted father. Perturabo's inherent mistrust had a mysterious origin. Upon reaching a summit after a climb, he witnessed a nebulous stellar maelstrom in the sky, invisible to others. This phenomenon, which would later be known as the Eye of Terror, a rift between real space and the immaterium, constantly observed Perturabo, instilling in him a sense of being judged and watched, fueling his brooding nature and reluctance to trust. Despite being viewed as aloof and distant, Perturabo learned the arts of siege warfare, a skill honed amidst Olympia's warring city-states. Upon reaching adulthood, he chose the name Perturabo, an ancient name he discovered and translated from a forgotten text, the meaning of which he kept to himself. Perturabo's military career began with minor commands in Dammekos's army, quickly rising through the ranks due to his string of victories. His reputation attracted mercenaries and war artisans to Lokos, but Perturabo's contributions extended beyond warfare. His genius in invention and science led to revolutionary advancements in various fields, from machinery and architecture to medicine and astronomy, far surpassing Olympia's existing knowledge. Perturabo's arrival in Lokos marked the beginning of a profound change. He was not motivated by rewards or accolades, but driven by a deeper sense of purpose, an instinct to build and protect. Despite his exceptional abilities and intellect, Perturabo remained emotionally distant, never truly connecting with those around him. His actions were often seen not as those of a savior, but as a tool to be exploited by others. The culture of Olympia, characterized by greed, selfishness, and competitiveness, saw Perturabo as a means to an end. His foster father, Dammekos, and even his step-siblings loved not Perturabo himself, but what he could do for them. This realization deepened the internal scars within the Primarch, leaving him without joy or satisfaction from his achievements. A notable incident during his time on Olympia further emphasized Perturabo's emotional isolation. In a sculptural competition with his foster brother Andros, Perturabo, despite his superior skill and intellect, lost to a mere mortal. This defeat highlighted what Perturabo lacked: humanity. He had never experienced the joy of discovery or the humility of defeat. This event led to a profound realization within Perturabo about the nature of his existence and the hollowness of his victories. Perturabo's reputation as the Hammer of Olympia was primarily forged through his advancements in warfare. He introduced new weapons, munitions, and siege engines of unprecedented design and efficacy. Under his generalship serving Tyrant Dammekos, Lokos became the dominant and most feared domain on Olympia, with numerous other city-states either conquered or coerced into submission. Despite his numerous military victories, peace eluded Lokos, replaced instead by dominance and the constant threat of internal betrayal. Attempts on Perturabo's life were frequent, both from subjugated tyrants who rightly believed that Lokos's supremacy hinged on Perturabo's existence, and from those within Perturabo's own circle who secretly harbored fear or envy towards him. As the Primarch matured, he stood out not only in physical stature and intellect, but also in his indifference to the superficial aspects of power and the deceitful nature of court politics. His disposition was characterized by aloofness, pride, and an unyielding nature. Perturabo became known as a merciless warlord, even by Olympia's harsh standards. To him, mercy was foreign, and any offense was met with lethal retribution. He was known for his steel executioner's mask and the ancient Caveathos heraldry, symbols that represented severe punishment for failure and death to his enemies. Despite having the power to overthrow Dammekos and claim the title of tyrant, Perturabo chose not to, adhering strictly to his oath and bargain. Dammekos, aware of his own vulnerability, never gave Perturabo a reason to break his oath. There is speculation that Perturabo might have allowed Dammekos to die naturally before eventually claiming Lokos, and subsequently all of Olympia, for himself. However, the trajectory of his rule on Olympia was altered by a significant event, the appearance of a new star in the heavens, signaling the arrival of the Emperor who had come to reunite with his lost son. Perturabo, it is believed, had already deduced his nature as a genetically engineered post-human. He anticipated the revelation of his creator, though the specifics remained unknown to him until the Emperor's arrival. Once rediscovered, Perturabo was taken to Terra to learn about his destiny and meet his fellow Primarchs. Atop the highest mountain of Olympia, Perturabo witnessed the Emperor's arrival. Overwhelmed by the presence of his true father, he was left in awe of the Emperor's majesty and wisdom. As the Emperor spoke, Perturabo felt his deepest thoughts and desires laid bare, yet he was humbled and filled with a newfound sense of humility and purpose. His true father had come for him. Perturabo had spent decades on a world where he was used as a tool in the army of a tyrant, and now his father had come to save him from this existence. All his life, he had been surrounded by vipers, the selfish nobility of Olympia, who would laud praise upon his works and accomplishments, but no one ever praised the man Perturabo, for no one really cared enough to know who he was and what he cared about. The Emperor proclaimed Perturabo as his Lord of Iron, recognizing his achievements on Olympia and offering to guide him towards greater knowledge and purpose. In this moment, Perturabo felt a genuine sense of belonging and acceptance, something he had never experienced amidst the political intrigue and superficiality of Olympia's society. His time in Olympia was also confounded by fear. Long ago, during this time amongst the mountains, the young Primarch had peered towards the heavens and gazed upon a strange nebula, a stellar maelstrom erupting across the galaxy. Unnervingly, he found that no one else could see it. The Primarch felt, at all times, as if he was being watched by something malevolent, stared at him constantly, watching, waiting, judging, a constant source of background paranoia that clung to him through his daily life. The expectations of genius and perfection were suffocating in Olympian high society, and he feared sharing this, as it could be seen as weakness, a dangerous thing to share amongst Olympians. In fact, his entire life had reinforced this disdain, seeing the farmers too weak to defend themselves against the serpentine monster, the weakness inside the fortresses he conquered, the weakness inside him when Andros, a mere man, beat him in competition. There was no place for weakness. By reuniting with his father, he learned of the Great Crusade, a dream to unite humanity across the stars. His father told him his journey would be tough and he expected great things from Perturabo. Perhaps for the first time in his life, he had someone who he truly didn't want to disappoint. Perturabo's pledge of allegiance to the Emperor marked a significant turning point in his life. The years of being a frontline strategist and the sole beacon of progress amidst the calculating nobility of Olympia were now behind him. He was no longer a tool in the hands of a tyrant, but a pivotal figure in the grand vision of the Emperor of mankind. His road ahead, as prophesied by the Emperor, would be challenging, but it was a path few were worthy of, and Perturabo embraced it with unbridled joy and loyalty. Perturabo's interest lay more in ancient philosophies than technological marvels, though he explored both with his brother Magnus. The two shared a deep love for knowledge and learning, and despite Perturabo's difficulty in forming friendships, he developed a strong bond with Magnus. His loyalty, once given, was steadfast, though he would later learn that even the strongest bonds could fray. Perturabo's intellect was extraordinary even among his fellow Primarchs. He possessed an unparalleled capacity for learning and scientific understanding. However, this brilliance was often turned inwards, and Perturabo remained a distant figure, aloof and secretive about his plans and thoughts, even towards his fellow Primarchs, with whom he was often cold and indifferent. The Emperor, however, valued Perturabo's abilities and saw in him a potent weapon for the Great Crusade. Perturabo was a warlord and general whose formidable strength was matched by his keen strategic mind. He approached warfare analytically, viewing each battle and campaign as problems to be solved and overcome. This approach would soon bring Perturabo and his legion into conflict with the enemies of mankind, where they would demonstrate their formidable capabilities. As the Great Crusade progressed, the time came for the Emperor to send Perturabo into the galaxy to aid in the monumental task of reuniting humanity under the banner of the nascent Imperium of Man. Like his fellow Primarchs, Perturabo ascended to the peak of the Astartes Tower on Terra to swear his Oath of Moment, a crucial ritual for every Primarch before they embarked on their campaigns. The journey to the top of the marble spire was not just a physical challenge, but a profound test of will, determination, and courage. This ascent represented a spiritual and intellectual trial, a form of psychic communion with the Emperor that pushed a warrior's endurance to its limits. At the culmination of this ritual, Perturabo pledged his loyalty to the Imperium. He officially took command of the 4th Space Marine Legion, which he renamed the Iron Warriors. This legion had been created from his own genetic template. As per tradition, Perturabo was also declared the Lord of Olympia, the world where he had been raised, effectively superseding Dammekos as its ruler. With his newfound authority over the Iron Warriors, Perturabo initiated the recruitment of the most capable candidates from Olympia to replenish and strengthen his legion. Meanwhile, Dammekos, Perturabo's adoptive father and deposed ruler of Olympia, spent his final years amassing forces in a futile attempt to reclaim power and resist the Imperium's rule. Though Dammekos's rebellion ultimately failed, his actions sowed seeds of anti-imperial sentiment among the Olympians. This undercurrent of unrest and opposition would later come back to haunt Perturabo and his Iron Warriors, shaping their destiny and their relationship with the Imperium. When the Emperor of Mankind deemed it time, Perturabo, having absorbed extensive knowledge of the Great Crusade and its operations, was appointed to lead the Fourth Legion, carrying his gene seed. This transition was executed with swift precision. At that time, approximately 35,000 Astartes of the Fourth Legion were ready to follow Perturabo's command, with a significant portion more dispersed across the Imperium. Perturabo, upon reviewing the Fourth Legion's war record and practices, found them lacking when compared to his ideal of strength and supremacy. Determined to forge the greatest force in the galaxy, as he believed the Emperor expected, Perturabo imposed a severe punishment: decimation. 1 in 10 of the Legion, chosen at random, was executed by their comrades. This brutal act was intended to purge weakness and reinforce their role as an unyielding war machine. The directive of decimation, viewed as extreme and barbaric by some, such as Guilliman of the Ultramarines, was nonetheless supported by the Emperor. It reflected Perturabo's belief that the Legion should exemplify the epitome of strength and excellence. The survivors of this purge learned a stark lesson. In Perturabo's Legion, failure was not an option, and weakness would be met with death. Perturabo's leadership style and the reshaping of the Fourth Legion echoed his nature: ruthless, efficient, and devoid of emotional bonds. The relationship between the Primarch and his legion was not one of camaraderie, but of cold, mechanical functionality. They were to be the standard bearers, the exemplars of martial prowess, not a family bound by affection. Perturabo's inability to connect deeply with his brothers, save for a bond of respect and innovation with Magnus the Red, stemmed from his analytical and technologically oriented mindset. He desired connection but was hindered by his nature, programmed to prioritize knowledge and strategy over emotional ties. As the Great Crusade progressed, the sense of duty and wonder that initially captivated Perturabo began to sour. He watched as Rogel Dawn, another Primarch, was tasked with fortifying Terra, a duty he believed should have been his. His legion, after enduring countless brutal campaigns and achieving remarkable victories, felt overshadowed by the triumphs of other legions. Jealousy and resentment festered within Perturabo, feelings he could not express due to his perception of them as weaknesses. The constant comparison to his brothers, particularly Dawn, and the lack of recognition for his and his legion's sacrifices created a growing bitterness. The Iron Warriors, despite their unmatched achievements in siege warfare and fortification, felt undervalued and overlooked. The Iron Warriors, under Perturabo's rule, fostered no alliances, save for some within the Mechanicum, driven by mutual interest in advancing warfare technology. They perceived weaknesses in other legions and felt misunderstood and slighted, whether real or imagined. As the Great Crusade neared its end, the Iron Warriors were continually deployed in the most grueling and horrific conflicts. Their victories were immense, yet the glory and honor they sought remained elusive, overshadowed by the feats of other legions. This mounting discontent and sense of injustice would later contribute significantly to Perturabo's and the Iron Warriors' tragic path during the Horus Heresy. The Iron Warriors' reputation was particularly grim within the Exertus Imperialis. Known for using human auxiliaries as expendable assets, they were branded as corpse grinders. This led to frequent mutinies which were brutally suppressed. Horus eventually decreed that only criminals or non-compliants should be assigned to the Iron Warriors in an attempt to mitigate the adverse effects on morale. Following Horus's appointment as War Master, a series of directives dispersed the Iron Warriors across numerous fronts, assigning them to a multitude of thankless sieges, garrisons, and isolated posts within the expanding Imperium. Meanwhile, the 125th Expeditionary Fleet, led by Perturabo, was continuously thrust into dangerous conflicts without reinforcement or additional resources, save for what they could generate themselves. This relentless grind further alienated the Fourth Legion, fostering resentment and exacerbating the psychological toll on its warriors. The Iron Warriors established numerous citadels on liberated worlds to secure communication lines and maintain Imperial control. However, these garrisons were often understaffed, exemplified by the Iron Keep on Delgasta II, where only 10 Iron Warriors were stationed to oversee a population of 130 million. This contrasted sharply with the decisions of other Primarchs, like Leman Russ, Vulcan, and Magnus the Red, who refused to scatter their forces. Perturabo, however, dutifully obeyed these orders, despite growing bitterness. The Iron Warriors' unparalleled proficiency in siege warfare pigeonholed them into such roles, neglecting the Legion's need for rest and reorganization. This constant demand and typecasting led to mounting resentment within the Legion, particularly within Perturabo himself, further isolating them from the Emperor's vision and the broader Imperium they served. The Iron Warriors' recent campaign against the Hrud of the Sactrada Steppes also had been a brutal endeavor. The Hrud's unique technology rapidly aged their enemies, and even Perturabo, a Primarch, felt the toll of their weapons. The campaign left the Iron Warriors' fleet nearly shattered, and Perturabo was frustrated by the futility of the conflict and the lack of recognition for their sacrifices. At the climax of the campaign, as his fleet lay devastated by a Hrud temporal shockwave, Perturabo could only blame the Emperor's vanity for the damage done to his sons on this useless campaign. It might well have been Horus who kept the Legion on this roll, allowing him to more easily sway the mind of Perturabo towards chaos. As the Horus Heresy loomed on the horizon, Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, found himself under increasing pressure, fueling his long-standing resentment into a raging inferno. Many speculated that Horus, the appointed War Master, had orchestrated events to Perturabo's detriment, exacerbating the existing grievances of the Iron Warriors. This tumultuous period was marked by a series of calamities that culminated in the outbreak of the heresy. A defining moment in this tumultuous journey was the rebellion on Olympia, Perturabo's homeworld. Olympia descended into chaos, exacerbated by the Imperium's conscription policies and cultural impositions. This rebellion struck deep at the heart of both Perturabo and his legion. When the rebellion on Olympia erupted, Perturabo, filled with anger and shame, saw it as an immense personal failure. His return to Olympia was driven by rage. The Olympians attempted to negotiate, but Perturabo, seeing through their schemes and manipulations, rejected their overtures. He viewed the Olympians as those who had used him as a tool, and his feelings of betrayal and hatred clouded his judgment. In a fit of rage, Perturabo ordered a ruthless decimation of Olympia. The Iron Warriors descended from the skies, bombarding the very fortresses Perturabo had built in his youth. The world burned under their assault, and city after city fell. The Iron Warriors, many of whom had grown up in these cities, were torn between duty and the horror of what they were doing. Perturabo's anger reached its zenith when he confronted Caliphone, his foster sister and leader of the rebellion. In a heated exchange, Caliphone accused Perturabo of harboring a martyr's complex, of craving recognition and love, yet being unable to return it to others. Perturabo's response was violent and final. He strangled Caliphone, his own family, with his bare hands. In the aftermath, Perturabo was consumed by fear and shame. He realized that there were people who had cared for him, who had recognized his worth, but his own blindness and insecurities had led him to this atrocity. He feared the Emperor's judgment, knowing that what he had done was unforgivable. Nothing came, no censure, no punishment, no justice. In fact, just nothing. Perturabo had done something unforgivable, only to be met with silence. No one cared. The Emperor didn't care. It was just another securing of a non-compliant world. But how was the Emperor any different from Dammekos, from the nobles of Olympia? He was just another uncaring tyrant. It was at Perturabo's lowest point when Horus came to him. The War Master, already corrupted by chaos, began to whisper in his ear, "You are right about the Emperor. He is an unjust tyrant. Serve me and I will acknowledge you, your gifts, your genius, your strength. The Emperor has lied to us. He has lied about the warp. I will forgive you for your atrocities, brother." Perturabo was vulnerable. He hated more than anything to be vulnerable, to be weak. Perturabo pledged his service to Horus. After this, the Iron Warriors received new orders from Terra. The Imperium was teetering on the brink of civil war following Horus's betrayal and the attack on Prospero by Leman Russ and the Space Wolves. The Iron Warriors were summoned to join the Loyalist forces at Istvan V. However, the battle there marked a definitive turning point. The Iron Warriors, alongside the Night Lords, Word-Bearers, and Alpha Legion, betrayed the Loyalist legions, contributing to the near annihilation of the Iron Hand Salamanders and Raven Guard in the infamous Drop Site massacre. This pivotal event sealed the fate of the Iron Warriors and Perturabo, as they irrevocably joined Horus in his rebellion, forever altering their place in the Imperium and marking them as traitors. Perturabo's betrayal at Istvan V was not a spontaneous decision, but the result of prior manipulation and seduction by Horus. He, along with several other Primarchs, had already pledged allegiance to the War Master, ensuring that 9 Space Marine legions would stand against the Emperor's loyal forces. After the Drop Site massacre, Horus presented Perturabo with a significant symbol of their alliance, the Power Hammer Forge Breaker. This weapon, previously belonging to Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands, who was slain by Fulgrim, was a token of the new pact between Horus and the Iron Warriors. However, the true bond between Perturabo and Horus was not the weapon itself, but the forgiveness and acceptance Horus offered, something Perturabo felt he could not receive from the Emperor. During the ongoing conflict of the Horus Heresy, the Iron Warriors seized an opportunity to confront their long-standing rivals, the Imperial Fists, on the world of Hydra Caudatus. The Iron Warriors demonstrated their superiority in siege warfare by conducting a precise bombardment that left the Cadmean citadel, defended by a small Imperial Fists garrison, isolated amid widespread devastation. The ensuing siege showcased the Iron Warriors' technological mastery and strategic acumen. Despite the valor and determination of the defenders, the citadel ultimately fell to the Iron Warriors after a grueling 3-month siege. Perturabo himself led the final assault, displaying his formidable combat prowess by personally eliminating over 30 Imperial Fists Astartes. In the aftermath, the Iron Warriors showed no mercy, slaughtering the remaining defenders, civilians, and refugees within the citadel. Those who survived were enslaved, and Hydra Caudatus was left a desolate wasteland, a testament to the Iron Warriors' ruthless efficiency and Perturabo's relentless pursuit of proving their legion's supremacy. This event further solidified the Iron Warriors' reputation as one of the most formidable and remorseless forces among the traitor legions. Following their triumph at Hydra Caudatus, Perturabo received a message from Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's Children, requesting a meeting to discuss a matter of significant importance. Though the exact nature of the discussion was not disclosed, Fulgrim promised it would be wondrous. Perturabo, aware of his brother's tendency for theatrics, which seemed to have intensified since aligning with Horus, remained cautious. Perturabo and Fulgrim had shared a common ground in their pursuit of excellence. Fulgrim through the relentless pursuit of perfection, and Perturabo through strict discipline and meticulous planning. Despite their shared goal, the two Primarchs had divergent approaches. Perturabo suspected the meeting might involve a discussion about Mars, as Horus needed the Martian domain secured for the eventual assault on Terra. When the Emperor's children arrived at Hydra Caudatus, their arrival was grandiose, contrasting sharply with the Iron Warriors' more austere demeanor. The Emperor's children's transformation since joining Horus was evident, marked by a flamboyance that rendered them almost unrecognizable from their former selves. During the private meeting in Perturabo's command bunker, Fulgrim presented an enticing proposition. The opportunity for Perturabo to realize his deepest desires, without fail, an offer that piqued the Lord of Iron's interest despite his reservations about Fulgrim's intentions. Fulgrim revealed their joint objective, to venture into the warp storm that had haunted Perturabo's dreams. Hidden within this storm was the Angel Exterminatus, a Xenos weapon of immense power, so dangerous that even the stars themselves had acted to contain it. Fulgrim proposed that by uniting their forces, they could secure this weapon and potentially shift the balance of power in Horus's rebellion. Despite his skepticism, Perturabo saw potential in this joint venture with Fulgrim, not just in the strategic value of the Angel Exterminatus, but perhaps also in gaining a deeper understanding of his brother's motives and the true nature of the rebellion. This decision marked another step in the Iron Warriors' journey into the depths of the Horus Heresy, further entwining their fate with the traitor Legion's cause. Perturabo's connection to the Eye of Terror, a prominent warp storm, had been a constant presence in his life. No matter the distance, he could always sense its echo, a unique ability that he wondered was either an intentional design like Sanguinius' wings or Corax's eyes, or a mere quirk of his genetic makeup. This connection was both a gift and a burden, haunting his dreams and influencing his thoughts since he first learned of its existence. Curious about this phenomenon, Perturabo once inquired with Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, if his silver eyes provided a similar insight. Ferrus Manus, however, dismissed the question with apparent scorn, leading Perturabo to never raise the topic again. Upon reaching the outskirts of the Eye of Terror with the joint fleet of the 3rd and 4th Legions, Perturabo experienced a rare moment of shared perception. Others could see the warp storm, though not with the same clarity or depth as he did. His vision penetrated beyond its chaotic exterior to the distorted realities within, where reason and the physical laws of the galaxy were mere playthings of unfathomable forces. Before venturing into this maelstrom, Perturabo consulted astrogation charts, noting the label Cygnus X assigned to the anomaly. Displeased with this mundane designation for such a formidable and terrifying phenomenon, Perturabo decided it deserved a name that would evoke fear and resonate through time. With a simple gesture, Perturabo changed the name in the astrogation charts from Cygnus X to a new, more fitting title. This name, the Eye of Terror, would not only spread throughout the fleets of the traitor legions, but would also be adopted by the Imperium, becoming a symbol of fear and a testament to the warp storm's nightmarish presence. The joint fleet of the Iron Warriors and Emperor's children, guided by Primarchs Perturabo and Fulgrim, aimed to conquer the ancient Eldar world of Idris, a crone world situated at the Eye of Terror's core. This world, once favored by the elder goddess Lilith, had miraculously survived the gravitational forces of a supermassive black hole at the Eye's center. Their target was the sepulchre of Isha's doom within the citadel of Amon-Nai Shak Kailis, believed to house the mysterious Angel Exterminatus. The Iron Warriors initiated a devastating orbital bombardment as a prelude to their assault, carving a desolate ring around the citadel and isolating it from the rest of the planet. Perturabo, aboard his Shadow Sword tank, the Tormentor, and Fulgrim, resplendent in radiant armor, led their forces towards the citadel. Despite an apparently undefended route, Perturabo, ever cautious, ordered his troops to establish defensive positions outside the walls, while Fulgrim's forces splintered into smaller warbands. As the traitor forces penetrated deeper into the citadel, they remained unaware of the loyalist Astartes from the Sisypheum, vastly outnumbered, yet determined to find an alternate route into the sepulchre. Inside, Perturabo observed his brother Fulgrim, whose physical appearance hinted at an otherworldly influence. Fulgrim's skin emitted a faint light, and his demeanor suggested immense strain. The same eerie luminescence was visible in some of Fulgrim's commanders, an indication of their unnatural transformation. Upon reaching the central chamber, the power within Idris reacted violently to the presence of Slaanesh's followers, awakening its guardians. Thousands of Eldar Wraith constructs, the planet's ancient dead, sprang to life, launching an assault on the traitor forces both inside and outside the citadel. In the midst of the chaos, Fulgrim vanished. Perturabo, pursuing his brother, entered the chamber's heart, where he found a surreal environment. Idris was a hollow world, with a vast chamber housing a blazing jade core. Confronting Fulgrim, Perturabo learned the truth. The angel exterminatus was not a weapon, but a transformation Fulgrim sought for himself. As Perturabo prepared to strike his brother down with Forgebreaker, Fulgrim revealed the true purpose of the gift he had given Perturabo on Hydra Caudatus, a cloak with a skull-carved pin containing a Mulgatar stone which had been draining Perturabo's life force. As the two Primarchs ascended within the chamber's radiant core, they emerged into the ongoing battle within the sepulchre, with the fate of their quest and the nature of the angel exterminatus hanging in the balance. In the climactic confrontation on Idris between the Primarchs Perturabo and Fulgrim, the Emperor's children leader hurled his Iron Warrior's counterpart to the ground. Perturabo, gravely wounded, lay motionless, his body seemingly lifeless after the intense conflict. All eyes were drawn to Fulgrim, who underwent a startling transformation. Floating above the shaft's fading green glow, his armor shimmered with a radiant, sun-like energy, and his eyes became voids of endless darkness. As Fulgrim neared the pinnacle of his transformation, Perturabo miraculously regained strength, rising with the Mulgatar stone in hand. Perturabo, seeking a sign of remorse or regret in Fulgrim's eyes, found none. Heartbroken at his brother's irreversible fall from grace, Perturabo, realizing Fulgrim's godlike aspirations, rejected them and hurled the stone into the shaft. At that moment, the chamber erupted in bolter fire as the Iron Hands charged into the fray. The battle between loyalists and traitors intensified, with the Raven Guard Sharrokin acquiring the Mulgatar stone during the chaos. Understanding the stone's significance, Sharrokin destroyed it, unleashing a surge of energy that revitalized Perturabo. Fulgrim's body contorted in agony as the stone's destruction released the combined essences of both Primarchs, fueling a violent transformation. His armor disintegrated, revealing a grotesquely enlarged body enveloped in spectral flames. As Perturabo regained his full strength, he prepared to deliver a final, fatal blow to his brother. In a moment of realization, Fulgrim saw his imminent demise in Perturabo's eyes, but greeted it with a grin, accepting his fate. Perturabo, wielding Forgebreaker with executioner-like precision, swung the hammer in a lethal arc, delivering a devastating blow that split Fulgrim's body. Fulgrim's body exploded under the impact of Perturabo's warhammer, Forgebreaker, unleashing an extraordinary burst of energy. This explosion was both a death and a rebirth, transforming Fulgrim into a radiant being at the center of the chamber. Fulgrim's transformation was both magnificent and horrifying, with his body reshaping into a serpentine form, complete with reptilian scales and 2 obsidian horns. In this moment, Fulgrim ascended into chaos, becoming a Daemon Prince of Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess and pleasure. His transformation marked the first of the traitor Primarchs to achieve daemonic apotheosis. After journey, Perturabo's heart grew even colder. The betrayal by Fulgrim, the mortal wound, and witnessing his brothers enslaved by warp entities had taken its toll. By the time they reached Terra, he and Horus were the only ones who remained relatively sane. However, even Horus had transformed into an uncaring tyrant, resembling their father. What did Perturabo truly desire? He had long yearned for a utopia, a realm where he could be a scholar and creator, a place where his weakness would be transformed into power. By turning away from Horus, he overcame his most profound weakness, the need for others' approval. He had seen how his brothers, like Angron and Fulgrim, had succumbed to the dark gods, losing discipline and sanity. Most importantly, he was slowly dying, losing strength. The greatest weakness of all is failure, and death is the ultimate failure. Shortly after abandoning the siege, news arrived that Horus was dead, the Emperor was crippled, and the Loyalists were closing in on the traitor legions. So Perturabo made preparations on the world of Sebastis IV. The Iron Warriors thrived in darkness and constructed the Eternal Fortress, an almost impregnable stronghold resembling an 8-pointed star of chaos. It was a trap designed to draw in a rival whose animosity had never been resolved. Rogol Dawn, the Praetorian of Terra, consumed by despair at the Emperor's fate. He vowed to extract Perturabo from his hideout and return him to Terra in an iron cage. The battle between the two legions commenced, a brutal and relentless struggle between the foremost siege experts known to humanity. But Rogol Dawn, scarred by the events on Terra, was a broken man, and the battle turned into a form of punishment for his legion as they pushed forward, caring little for casualties. Finally, the trap was sprung. Perturabo and the Iron Warriors transformed the siege into a prison, isolating the Imperial fists from the outside world. It was a massacre, and it would have spelled the end for them if not for the untimely intervention of the Ultramarines. Nevertheless, the battle was won, and Perturabo had asserted his dominance. Yet there remained one final adversary to conquer: death. During the heresy, Perturabo had witnessed how dedication to a single dark god could enslave a person to their whims. But what if one pledged allegiance to them all? What if the dark gods had to vie for his favor, competing against each other? Perturabo possessed an unparalleled understanding of the warp, surpassing even Horus. He believed that chaos could be a tool to elevate his power to an untouchable level, preventing his own demise and failure. He made his decision. The gene seed of over 1,000 Imperial fists, captured by the Iron Warriors in the Iron Cage, was offered as a sacrifice to the Dark Gods. Perturabo ascended to the rank of a Daemon Prince of Chaos Undivided. He was granted a world, a domain of his own, a place to construct his utopia. Thus, Perturabo's journey was undeniably tragic. It was ironically fitting that the material he found resonance with was iron, because in reality, iron is brittle. Perturabo was a brilliant and powerful figure, but his heart was his greatest vulnerability. The absence of love in his life was the root of his suffering. His true weakness was his inability to accept weakness itself. He concealed his vulnerabilities, allowing them to fester within him, eventually transforming into resentment and hatred. He forged perhaps the deadliest legion in the Imperium, created unparalleled technology, and devised brilliant strategies. He was a titan of both physical and mental prowess. He even achieved immortality as a demon. Yet he was alone. He's probably the most literal interpretation of the trait, Lord of Iron. He is hard, dense, and compact, unwavering in his convictions, unwavering in his ideals, unwavering in his pride, and just like iron, unable to bend. Perturabo does not slowly wither like Fulgrim. He doesn't suffer self-doubt like Lorgar. He doesn't surrender to circumstances like Conrad. He is not consumed by illogical hatred like Mortarion, nor hubristic curiosity like Magnus, nor even was he malleable in his morals like Horus. And that's the point. Perturabo never bent, so he broke, like iron.